Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Overlook News here on Sunday. With me is Z, one of the other hosts on
everybody.
Overlook News. Yeah, and here we have a few guests with us. Two of them are people who work at the Amazon plant in North Carolina that is in the process of trying to unionize. And then with them is Adam as well, who's working with C.A.U.S.E and supporting them. So how about we could just start with, if we want to start with Adam, then we can go to Destiny and Kat. Just quickly introduce yourselves, and then we can go from there.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Adam Stroma. I'm relatively newer to the North Carolina area, but I've been a long-standing member of the cause. I work on the board of directors. I work with Reverend Ryan, Destiny, and Kat very, very closely. And my affiliations are I'm with DSA, and we would love to see an Amazon union in North Carolina. I don't think there's too much more to say than that.
Awesome. Cool. Destiny, go ahead, and then Kat.
Cool. Hey, y'all. I'm Destiny. I'm Stower at RDU1, and I am on the board of directors at C.A.U.S.E. I guess I'm over the recruitment committee for now. And yeah, we're working hard on this kind of all the time.
Absolutely. Kat, go for it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kat. I work at RDU1 on the inbound dock at DCANT. I've been with Amazon with 2 years, going on 3. And I'm with C.A.U.S.E. I'm on the board of directors board. I got my hand in everything. I'm part of the recruitment, fundraiser, website planning. So I'm just there for when they need me.
Doing everything.
Yeah. They call me the voice of associates at Amazon because I'm always speaking for them when they have a problem. And don't nobody seem like they're scared of leadership, but I'm not.
Nice. Awesome. So we kind of naturally, as you were introducing yourselves, you went about and said a little bit of this, but to start out with, why don't you tell us a little bit more about, each of you tell us a little bit more about what you do at Amazon, and what led you to realize that something needed to be done to address the working conditions, the oppressive working conditions that Amazon currently has. So how about we could start, if you want to start with Kat, and then we can go to Destiny, and then Adam can wrap up.
Okay. Well, I started with Amazon and as a seasonal temp directly through Amazon in November 2019 at RDU5. And I became permanent while at RDU5 in February of 2020. And everything was going well. I became an ambassador. I switched positions working in smalls and did some training being on the panel of the panel that deals with firing people, the appeals panel, that's what it's called. So that was interesting. Then I got an offer going to RDU1 in September 30th. I got an accepted offer at RDU1. And while I got there, everything had changed. I lost all my ambassador permissions, problem solve permissions. It was basically like starting from the ground up. And where I'm at now, inbound dock, DCANT, I love it there because we're the first stage of the warehouse, and without us, nothing will move in that warehouse. And I'm basically their top decanter, and I get no recognitions. And now I'm having problems with accommodations with my wrist. I can't lift no more than 10 pounds per item and stuff, and they don't recognize my accommodations at all.
Wow.
So pretty much what they did was you were moving up a little bit, and then as soon as like it got convenient, they stopped it, and now they're not even giving you any of the recognition or pay that you actually deserve.
I received a T-shirt, hat, a $5 vending machine snack card. Like, we can eat that up with just drinking chips. That's not enough.
Yeah, that's insulting.
Right.
So as far as I just wanted to ask real fast. So the name C.A.U.S.E, where did that name come from? Because I'm in South Carolina, and so and we're down bad on unions here too, and so I was just wondering where did the name C.A.U.S.E come from?
When I got here, it was already called C.A.U.S.E. And I can tell you from my experience as being like a Black Southern church girl, when I see a long acronym like this, I'm like, oh, I can tell somebody's been to church. And to me, it just like it is kind of indicative of like who we are and where we are, and that we have like some real Southern Black people at the center of our organizing. So that like we have a name.
They were discussing the different names, and it was sort of like they were going between having a snazzy acronym and having a very descriptive name, or having too short of a name. And it was sort of a too hot, too cold, just right thing, where they were like, the whole name tells you all you need to know, but at some point you need to be able to say it in less than like 5 words. So that was definitely, I think, how we ended up coming up with C.A.U.S.E.
I like it. I think it's really catchy.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Destiny. So we heard a little bit about Kat, and it sounds like one of the things. Or would you rather be call you Kat, or is
Kat is fine?
Kat is fine. Okay. So we heard about Kat and how Amazon is not being very accommodating towards when it comes to the wrist and not being able to lift more than 10 pounds. Curious to hear, Destiny, what is it with you that kind of triggered you to be like, okay, we need to push back against this and try and form a union?
So I've always I am a leftist to begin with. So I came in wanting to unionize, I've always believed that it needed to be, but also just when I was at RDU5, it's hard work. Like, especially if you're like smalls or packages that are like, that can come in an envelope. Okay. So that's something you can lift easier, but it's like most of the plant is like you're stacking pallets like 6 feet high with like anything. It could be a mattress. It could be like an action figure, but it's like it's hard work. And one plant is like almost entirely part-time shift. So everybody has 2 or 3 jobs. And it's like, it was just crazy that, the richest man on the planet, or one of the richest people who ever lived, is running a factory where like everyone has to work 3 jobs. And it doesn't make sense. My first job I ever had was at a unionized plant. And I guess because my first experience at a job was like, I was a temp, so I didn't get full benefits, but everyone who was on board there made $25 an hour, right? And it was in Reidsville, North Carolina, like 10 years ago. So I'm like to me, it's like I'm aware of the difference that unions can make, and so I want to see it happen.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, the fact that people who work at Amazon, especially these are physical intensive jobs. I'm sure you're so tired by the end of your damn shift at Amazon.
You're part-time.
Yeah. And the fact that you're like, okay, now I have to go to my next job.
Yeah.
Instead of recuperating. I mean, I imagine that alone increases the risk of injury because you're not giving your body chance to actually recover. And then it's just like a vicious cycle of just, okay, now you're injured and they're not giving you the accommodations you need. So yeah. Adam, before we move on to the next question, is somebody on the outside supporting them, anything else you would like to add from your perspective in what you're doing?
Oh, should I? I'll add, from somebody on the outside. So I would say, so my background's actually in labor economics. I've been in DSA for 7 years. But my background, like in terms of like what I study, is labor unions, the workforce. My dissertation was on how union density affected how countries were affected by import competition from China, which is a combination of a personal interest, two very big literatures that I found didn't talk to each other, and what you can hear from pretty much every person who lives in the Rust Belt or former manufacturing areas who want to blame China for shipping all of their jobs away or something like that. Obviously, we sort of know how the bosses work. It wasn't China's fault. It was the employers that wanted to invest in China and didn't want to pay fair wages and didn't want to have to deal with unions. A lot of these unfortunate developments were a consequence of the strength of labor unions rather than the weakness of them. But I got interested in this campaign in particular because while Mark Twain once said, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And I think that's what's going on with this Amazon facility. The challenges are different. You have immigration questions, compositions of the workforce questions that are different, labor and hiring practices that are different, independent contractors as a way of skirting labor like Wagner Act protections and just basic decency. That's getting more egregious, but employers have always tried to do stuff like that. So when you study the history of the labor movement, I think Amazon is one of the most important examples of how the kind of classic class struggle labor unionism that this country needs can happen. It is large areas of technical, important, labor-intensive work among people who are, in the absence of a union, very vulnerable to being exploited. And so the key question then is, how do you get them involved and how do you get them talking to each other? And all I knew is that I wanted to be a part of that conversation.
Awesome. Cool. Z, what's up?
Sorry.
Go
I was
for it.
wanting to say, seeing the one at the Staten Island vote to unionize, how has that affected the morale? We're already planning on doing that, or did that just pop out of nowhere and then it just it sparked it and inspired y'all to start unionizing?
So C.A.U.S.E was already in existence before the ALU vote. But the ALU vote definitely inspired a lot of energy. So like they was like a flyering drive after the ALU victory. And that was really like successful. And so definitely motivating. But if you were to talk to Ryan always says that Alabama was his inspiration and not Staten Island, even though, of course, paying a lot of attention to Staten Island. And he's hanging out with Chris Smalls at the Labor Notes Conference now, but it's like that Alabama was inspiration.
I think the Bessemer and ALU cases you would say are encouragement, but the inspiration, especially like we phone banked hundreds of people after the flyering campaign that Destiny was talking about. And it was so encouraging for everyone to be on the phone talking to them about issues that matter and hearing that they were listening. And I think encouraging for them to know that just somebody, on the other end of the line would be calling them about something like this. As I said, the encouragement comes from places like Bessemer and ALU, but the inspiration for what we do comes from working at Amazon.
Right.
It's just not like humane working conditions for people. And if you talk to somebody and you point that out, their answers are, I know, and well, what are we going to do about it? And that's what we're trying to do.
So saying like organizing all the phone banks and getting and finally seeing that when you're reaching out to people, they actually understand, opposed to just being like, yeah, whatever, get back to work, go do your job. They're actually like connecting with people. Yeah, because I feel like everyone seeing what's going on.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Destiny or Kat, I would love to know like stories that you've had when we've done the phone banks, because I have a few, but we all have them, and I think that they would be helpful for people to know what it's like to just like get together in a group and say, all right, we've got a crazy idea, we've got hundreds of names, and we're just gonna call people. Because it has to start somewhere. But do you guys have any stories that you wanted to tell?
Please, that would be awesome.
Well, with me, I be trying to get people to join C.A.U.S.E and stuff, and they be wanting action like right there and then. Like, we need something to happen tomorrow instead of waiting for this to happen. I get tired of doing this and doing that. I'm ready to quit, and I just like, no, don't quit. Just keep doing what you're doing. We'll get this together, and I just be trying to keep them there to hold on strong, and we can pull this together as a team and make things happen.
Yeah.
Because I even thought about having a walkout for DCAT, but it's hard to get people on different shifts and heads bumping and, people for it and people against it. So it's a lot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess if we're responding to Adam's question, is that like, when we were doing phone banking and we're calling people, everybody has like the general same concerns, right? Which is that we need more time off, we need higher pay, and just that people aren't able to, especially as prices like go up, like people aren't able to live on the pay that we're getting. $15 an hour, $17 an hour, like if you're on the night shift, it's like it's just not enough. And so that's the problems that we hear come out of that, where it's like, oh, if you don't have enough time off, you're like, if you like can't get off to go take care of your kids, you're gonna get fired. Or if you will get fired because you just don't have enough time. They started like us with like 20 hours of unpaid time off, right? But I work a 12-hour shift, right? So like 20 hours is like
nothing.
Yeah, it's like I couldn't take the weekend off.
It's not even a full day.
Yeah, and so it's like, yeah, I couldn't take 2 days off without, because if you get a negative unpaid balance like time, then you're get separated from employment. They don't say fired. And
ain't part-time on a point system instead of on a that's another thing.
And so then they have like a very stringent tiered system, right? So it's like there's part-time, there's flex, there's reduced time, there's full-time, there's seasonal, and every group has different benefits. Every group has different like accrual of time off, and it's like but it like especially it's like it's almost setting up to fail, and it's there all the time. But with phone banking, like we like talk to people who like had miscarriages because they couldn't get time off work, right? And then it's like you can't go, you either like go back to this place that has harmed you so badly, or you don't go back, you don't have a job. And it's like there's a lot of pain that's just kind of built in that you got to work with.
Yeah, I know, because the only horror stories we get to hear anyways are the ones that they're the one that are getting publicized. So
yeah,
that's terrible.
Yeah. And you hear so many times on commercials, because I feel like ever since employees started really pushing back on Amazon's conditions, I see ads all the time where now Amazon is saying, almost like a political campaign commercial, like, great place to work. We offer free college tuition.
Every day.
Healthcare, right? We do this. And clearly, when you actually talk to workers, that's not happening, right?
Not at all.
So I'm curious if, like, is there any truth? Are they offering any of this to any of their employees? Like, how are they able to just blatantly lie like this? Or is there some sort of asterisk that they're of course not saying, that a lot of the employees are falling under, that are not giving them these benefits that they so love to make it sound like are great?
I mean, I would say a couple of things. Number one, if the benefits are so great, why have they only given a 50-cent raise at these facilities over the last several years in response to inflation to put the minimum pay at $15.50, when I can tell you that the MIT living wage calculator says in this area that the minimum wage needs to be at least $20 an hour? Number two, if you've got a company that is doing work on their image, it's because they have an image problem. And number three, and Kat and Destiny, I would be curious to know if this squares with your experience, but my understanding is that a lot of these benefits are deliberately made difficult to get, and are often not accessible to workers who have not either worked at Amazon for long enough or made it through the hurdles to be eligible. I mean, it's worthwhile to note, in many of these lower level picking positions, many of these lower level jobs in the hierarchy, we have measured the turnover rate at some of these positions to be in excess of 150% a year. You've barely gotten a name card and you're gone.
I was going to ask about the tuition? Turnover.
The turnover rate is horrible. It's like every day you see somebody new or somebody going out. And then with the benefits thing, it's a good package, but when you receive your check and 50% of it gonna come from benefits, something's wrong with that.
Do they make you pay it out? Like,
right.
All of these different, like, that's like you get $15.50. Oh, and if you want all of this stuff, we're gonna pull it on top of that.
Uh-huh.
And can you do you have any? I don't know if you are can contract it, but as far as I know they do the thing where they don't have to pay people benefits because they have them working as contractors. Is there any experience with that?
No, I haven't.
No, I think that's more of like with the drivers. But I was
Okay.
gonna say with
That is a problem.
education program that they're like so proud of. It's like I think at RDU1 you have to be there for 3 months before you can get the benefits for education. At RDU5, when I was there, you had to be there for a year. I don't know if that's changed, but it's like when there is turnover like that, like when there's 150% turnover, then it's like it's a benefit. It's like a carrot that's dangling too far away because like it's very difficult to stay there for a year. And
I'm sure you don't have time to go to school if you're there all the time picking up stuff. And
apparently apparently they say that you can like work your schedule around your school schedule when you're actually there. I haven't used Amazon Pay for School, so I don't know the experience that well, but I do know that it's like you have to have worked there long enough to have access to those benefits. And so it's like, and
I'm about to go back to school in October, so I would know how that schedule stuff worked when October comes.
Yeah.
So it sounds like even though they say they give you these benefits that you don't have to pay for education, they still are taking so much out of your paycheck to the point where it's like, is it really a free benefit if essentially you're paying for it? They're just taking the money away from you before you get it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like we're working for pennies, basically.
I mean, I could have a Cadillac health insurance plan. It's always a question of if I can afford it. And if the experts on the question are literally saying that your wage is starting at a quarter below the living wage in a economy in which the inflation rate is over 8.5%, according to the most recent estimates, yeah, you can give me a dictionary of different benefits that I can be eligible for. But if I can't afford them, what's the point?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That clears so much up.
Yeah.
They do that probably, frankly, to get to the previous point, they probably do that so they can say they do it, as distinct from doing it. If they have an image problem, these workers are overworked. Well, you don't want to like not overwork them, seems to be their conclusion. If they think they can get away with it, and if we have anything to say about it, they won't. But if they think they can get away with it, then just come up with a bunch of benefits. And then, you know, whether or not they're actually able to be availed for by the workforce is an entirely separate question. The question is if people think those benefits are there for them. But once they're in the door, they'll discover what Kat and Destiny have discovered, which is they're not.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked a little bit about this, but I want to kind of go a little bit more. So this is, I think, a great cash question that Jason in the chat has asked. So has Amazon taken to personally threaten any of you? I've heard some horror stories online from people trying to unionize, being harassed by the company. And I think that actually goes perfectly with the question I was going to ask as well, is that, you know, as you know, I'm sure North Carolina is the second least unionized state in the country, which I'm sure brings its own unique challenges that are probably even unique to Staten Island, which, you know, New York is definitely, as far as unions go in the country, more friendly to unions, but that, you know, of course, not too many high standards. But curious, you know, if you could also if you all could walk through some of the challenges that you are now facing trying to unionize. So, yeah, whoever would like to kind of go first on that, take it away.
I haven't really been threatened, but I feel like I have a pretty good feeling that some PAs and managers do know that I'm part of this organization, because one PA approached me, was like, I'm gonna need for you to go up the stove because there's not enough people up there, we're shorthanded. And I was like, I can't go up the stove because of my medical condition. And he was like, well, I'm gonna write you up because you not following or blind by what I'm telling you and stuff, and you can get fired and you'll lose all your top rating and decant and all that stuff. That's the only threat that I receive. But from GM and stuff, no, I haven't really received any threats yet.
So I guess on both questions, I would definitely say that for being targeted by Amazon for organizing, that Ryan, who definitely has like a figurehead position, gets the most attention, and the most people coming up to him and talking to, like, most of management attention is directed towards him. But for challenges in being in North Carolina, I was talking to somebody last night and I mentioned the union. They were like, girl, we're in North Carolina. There's not going to be a union. That's like that they just think that it's too difficult, that it's like beyond, it's not within their realm of possibility. And, but that's just like a challenge we have to face, that where we are, people aren't used to it. Like I kind of had the exact opposite experience where I expect, like, to me, if I'm not working in a place with a union, I can see how it's worse immediately. And because I worked in a union in North Carolina already, I'm like, oh, like I never thought it was impossible. And so like kind of challenging that, we're like, oh, it is possible. It's happened. It used to happen all the time. Right. But yeah, there is definitely the other people that I've talked to have been like, oh yeah, I'm even afraid to say it, like at work, that we're to talk about a union, even though like
it's like that like that down here too.
Yeah. Actually, in 2016, North Carolina was dead last in terms of unionization rates.
That's what
so there's actually been progress, if you can call it that, from 50th to 49th.
Now my state's
yeah, damn, Z, you got to step your game up over there.
well, Starbucks down the street just unionized, so
there you go. I mean, it always has to start somewhere. I will say, so currently, I think that Destiny and Kat are right, that the biggest logistical obstacle that we have is not Amazon yet. I think once we start having union cards and it becomes clear we're not going away, Amazon is going to rush to the front of the queue to make everyone's life a nightmare. We expect that. But currently, the major obstacle is just a sense of hopelessness, which is what the bosses want, and just misinformation. There are a staggering number of people who either, one, do not know what a union is or does, and so they will believe whatever propaganda is put in front of them, or two, they make elementary conflations, like believing, we've actually been harassed while flyering by people who it's not clear if they were Amazon workers or not, who believe that North Carolina being a right-to-work state is tantamount to unions being illegal in this state. So there's a question of like, can you form a union, logistically? But there are people who think like you cannot form a union legally. We're lucky in that those are not usually misconceptions that are too hard to clear up, but it is just a reminder of the state of discourse about unions overall. And so we've had to start anticipating and having really difficult conversations of how do we put the important information about what a worker's right is at work in front of them to anticipate the laundry list of anti-union bullying tactics that we're going to expect people to face. And that's not going to get easier, frankly. But I think that if we weren't making powerful people upset, Destiny, Kat, and I would be very justifiably wondering what we were doing with our time. So I'm quite glad to say that we're going to make a lot of powerful people very angry if we do our job right.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to just quickly circle back to something that you said, Destiny. So you came from a unionized job, right? Something that is pretty rare in North Carolina, right? And so have you found that when people push back, give that pushback you mentioned where it's like, we're not going to unionize. Have you found that when talking about your experience and how it is possible, that have you been able to convince some people who previously were kind of on the fence that it is possible? Have you found that yet? And if so, curious how that has gone.
I think that like hearing that people were making $25 an hour in Reidsville, North Carolina, like really just like, oh, well that's a lot better than what people are making here. And that like, I guess a lot of times what I say is that, in like, this is one of those jobs that should be able to support a family, right? That like 50 years ago, someone working this job would expect to be able to have like a one person income, support a whole family off of a job like this. But now now nobody would really dream of doing that without an absurd amount of like struggling. But the reason why it isn't is because there aren't unions to fight for it. And so like the not just the existence of a union, but like the difference that it can make, where it's like where the cost of living is much lower, you could have way more money. And it's the defining difference is being able to have collective bargaining rights and strike for it.
Awesome. Yeah. And so for those of you who don't know too, Z lives in South Carolina, so can definitely relate to the whole union being pretty unknown or having a very negative connotation of the South. So Z,
Could be a
I'll
cuss
let
word. Yeah.
Yeah. So Z, I'll let you kind of share any of your perspective or thoughts on this topic, since I know you might relate in that sense.
I know that North Carolina has a lot more worker and labor history than South Carolina, so that's another reason why there's like unions up there and not down here. But especially just being in the South, like a lot of things have been made into cuss words, so people just don't talk about them, even if they're not bad or illegal. So like we were talking about the fact that a union is like conflated with like either like communism or like it gets conflated with things that have no. They couldn't be part of unions, but it gets conflated with like bad things. Like union, like the right to work laws are pretty much not what happens when you don't have a union. But it makes it seem like right to work is it's very deceitful anyways, the word right to work, the term right to work. But it also goes both ways. Like the employer can fire you, but you can also walk out whenever you want to. So there's certain things that like people have that people have, like hurdles people have to jump over when it comes to unions down here and other social movements, to be honest.
Karl Marx has an expression that's quite apt in this instance when you said it works both ways. He had an expression of what he called dual freedom under capitalism, which is you are free to choose or not choose whatever job you would like. You are also free to starve. So that's the idea of right to work. That's to say, right, theoretically, a lawyer can tell everyone here, very sagaciously that actually it's freeing to both sides. But we all know that there's one side that comes into this with more power than the other. And the only way that you change that is with a union.
Exactly.
Absolutely. It's funny because actually my dad was telling me earlier today that my grandfather, who immigrated from Ireland, worked in a unionized job in New York. And they actually moved his job over to North Carolina because back then, in the 60s and such, that was the place where it's like, okay, we want to try and get away from unions, move it down south, right? And of course, my grandfather was like, I'm not moving down there. He didn't even know how to drive, right? So he stayed there and got a job somewhere else. But how poetic justice would this be, too, if you're able to unionize in a place where corporations historically have moved their sites over there to avoid unions? Definitely a good FU to the big man there.
And there have been successes. It's not actually well known, and I'll tell you at the end because I think it's really weird, but one of the largest successful recent union drives in a large-scale facility in the country in the last, I think, 5 or so years ago, was in North Carolina. It was the Smithfield plant. This was a fight where every illegal trick in the book was used. It took 3 different elections, multiple NLRB interventions in the conversation. But the Smithfield workers earn, if my knowledge serves, between $25 and $30 an hour now. The only reason we don't know about, and it's in a lower cost of living area, right? So this is a contract that's livable, even in a place where you get a unionized Starbucks fighting for 15, but you're looking 25, 30 in a relatively rural area. That's an even sweeter deal. What's perverse about that, the collective class consciousness of the sort of bosses in this case on full display, was that after drawing this out for decades, egregious violations. There was one instance when the vote count went through, they just beat up a union organizer after the vote came through to make a message out of him. This was savage working conditions. But all this is to say, incredible fight. Bloody, but they pulled it off. We don't hear about that because the last sort of little cherry bomb that the employers managed to get off after decades of fighting for this contract, decades of getting this union, was effectively an NDA on the union contract. This is talked about in Jane McElvee's book, what is it called? Organizing for Power, I believe.
Looking that up.
Age. No shortcuts.
Yes.
But this is why this isn't talked about. There are major union victories that are, having failed to win democratically, the bosses will still find a way for the lawyers to claw a victory out of the jaws of defeat. And they found that it's important to them that people just don't know that this can be done. So there's a sense in which what's happening in North Carolina is a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? I mean, I don't want to say it's just that, because obviously there's a ton of very real obstacles that we all face. But, this is another tactic that's used. So long as we don't have these conversations, so long as unionization, workers' rights is seen as, to your point, Z, the provenance of communists and anarchists and stuff like that, there's an important way in which we aren't having the right conversation, because this is a thing that people like Andrew's dad could count on for solid, single income, families, for middle class living styles from a working class job. There's nothing that's pie in the sky about that. But people really underestimate, I think, how many obstacles get in the way of doing this, and then even hearing about this. I mean, you guys are some of the first media people that we've been able to speak to about this. Destiny, Kat, feel free to chime in. I'm not waiting for CNN or Fox News or the New York Times or something like that to get to us. But again, it's really a testament to the shared appreciation of both the power of unions and, for the bosses, the danger of unions. And North Carolina is ground zero for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, thank you for sharing, Smithfield, that example.
I knew nothing about that.
Google it, because as I said, they can't talk about it, which is insane to me personally as a lefty guy, that they can do that. But, this is the freedom of contract.
Right.
Ultimately, understandably, fighting for 20 plus years, they figured that they would put up with that provision if it meant that they could finally afford their homes and their rents. And I understand that, because they went through hell. Pardon my French, but yeah, it was a big fight, and it happened right here.
I will say, because this was like 5 or 6 months ago, I remember reading this. So there's a lot that I don't remember, but one of the things I do remember from that specific Smithfield case is that the workers really did a great job at mapping out exactly who to coalesce with, who to talk to, who and that really enabled them all to come together to realize, hey, we're all collectively being oppressed here, and we need to do something about it. But yeah, the whole NDA thing, I mean, and we see this, I'm sure you all see this with Starbucks, right? Where it's just like dominoes. Each store is just starting to unionize. So these things clearly are contagious. And so it's no wonder that the last thing they do is
in the box.
Yeah, we'll take this one out, but we'll make sure no one knows about it so that this isn't contagious, like we're starting to see right now. Right. So yeah. Before we kind of move on to the next topic or question, anyone else got anything else to say regarding that? Or
no?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say that a lot of people like at Amazon drive from Eastern North Carolina, so they drive from Smithfield Way toward a lot of people are coming from Fayetteville, and and maybe not Smithfield specifically, but Wilson and Clinton. The first person that I met at Amazon who was training me was driving from Smithfield to he was driving from Smithfield to Durham. And so there's also, in addition to our long shift and hard work, a lot of people are commuting, have a significant commute to work this job.
And now gas is getting to the point where, it's just so
you're just paying to go to work.
Yeah, you're just paying to go to work and back.
Yeah. Right. That's all you're doing.
So I wanted to just show real quick Reverend Ryan Brown, who you have been mentioned in passing. So he's one of the leaders and figureheads of sort of this movement. So I'm aware that this past weekend, I think yesterday, was the Labor Notes Conference, correct? Which is an annual conference that talks about different labor issues going on in this country, right? And so wanted to just play this speech by Reverend Ryan Brown because I don't know, I really loved it. And then just, here's anything responses to it or anything you'd like to add to this. So I'm going to play that and then we'll go from there.
You have to wake those folks up. You have to make them conscious. You have to make them see what is going on and how they can have a better way of life. One of the things, if I can just say this real quick, how the demographics plays with our strategy as well. Now, one of the things I loved about the ALU campaign, I saw the food that they were giving, and so I grew up in a Black Baptist church, and if you grow up in a Black church, every Sunday you get food, and regardless of what your religious or convictions are, a lot of people follow the Palestinian Jew named Jesus because he could he supposedly turn water into wine, and he would feed people. So food creates a great conversation, and folks will follow you with food. So one of the things that we realized real quick, a week or 2 weeks ago, I had about seven people in one day to come on a Friday and to just have a mental meltdown. When I got to the seventh person, I had to leave work because I was going to snap next. The last two ladies that talked to me with tears in their eyes, they just got paid on Friday. They're single parents, but they didn't have any food to get through the weekend. So it occurred to me, and I talked to our board of directors about this, and the one thing that we're going to implement is that you work for one of the wealthiest individuals in the world, you get paid on Friday, and you don't have food to feed your family. So we're going to adopt a Black Panther model of a food program where we're going to, if Jeff Bezos don't feed them and don't provide for his people, that's what we're going to do. So
yeah. So go ahead, Z.
Okay, so that's awesome because the Black Panther Party is one of my favorite socialist movements, and the breakfast program itself is such a brilliant idea because the breakfast program is like, just like Michael Parenti said, the movement that feeds my kids is the one that gets my vote.
Yeah. So curious to hear any of your all kind of responses to that. And if there's any other information, that you could even say about the Black Panther model food program and, in the process what's happening with that and such. So, yeah.
Okay. So, I guess I have two thoughts. One is like with the Black Panther Project, like with the Black Panther Party and, with the Black Panthers, they said that people learn like through two ways, through observation and participation. And this kind of goes back to what Brian was saying about consciousness and that and also overcoming our challenges where people are afraid of unionizing is that we show people what we're capable of and what they're capable of by doing it, right? Like that we show people that you're not going to get fired by unionizing. We show people that like we can tell people whatever, right?
Oh,
but people will see it better by us doing it. And that stuff like right now we're not at a Panther level of food program right now. Right now we're at coordinating with local food banks level, right? But like it also opens up the door for there are more things that a worker organization can do other than just a union vote, right? That there are other like activities that are directed towards our coworkers that are also like organizing us and strengthening our unity with each other. And
it seems like you're extending out into the community too. So it seems like that's really cool.
And so it's like there's a lot of interesting directions to go from there. But the food insecurity and housing insecurity are definitely like a part of the reason why people are organizing, because we have like members even of our organization who are facing eviction at like the moment. And it's
Absolutely.
And I could say that I'm like one of them employees at Amazon that struggles keeping food in the house, and I have a 3-year-old and 2 dogs to feed, and then taking care of family members like my mom and my 95-year-old grandpa and stuff. So it's a lot on my plate right now. And then trying to go back to school, it's really a lot. And the food, it will really help a lot for a lot of employees because we work here at 10 hours and then y'all have these food trucks out here, but their meals is almost like $20, to $30 just to eat.
Yeah.
And then they start this another program called Fooda, and the meals are still high. Like a sub sandwich is after tax is probably still like $7.
And it's still all going back to them.
Yeah, and it's still going all back to them. And then when they did have an appreciation day trying to serve us food, it was a soggy hot dog. It was like 4 green beans and like 6 mac and cheese noodles. It felt like some jail food, and it came from 2 different food trucks. It was just, I was like, I don't know what kind of appreciation Amazon be showing. It was just, they got to do better. And Jeff Bezos sending people off the space and stuff when they need to be sending food to employees that's hungry.
That's what I was going to say. It's like you see him going off to space, and then his employees are barely being able to live.
Right.
He at least had the honesty to say, I want to thank the Amazon workers. You paid for this. I think that we would all say, yeah, we know that they paid for this. The point is they shouldn't have to pay for your rocket when people can't eat.
And it's not even that like, oh, Jeff Bezos needs to pay for our food. It's that Jeff Bezos is hoarding the money that belongs to us, the wealth that we created. Right? Like Jeff Bezos has moved nary a box. Like we created this wealth, and then he's using it to shoot himself into space and not like pay the people enough to have housing and food, right? And I was like talking to my mom about this, and I'm like, isn't it kind of crazy that like a trillionaire who does every tax evasion measure possible to pay 1% on his taxes, right, on his income, right, but would fight people trying to get a $6 raise, okay? That you would fight somebody over $6 when you wouldn't pay 1% of $1 trillion, right, in taxes. And my mom was like, it's just the devil. It's just like wicked greed to behave like that. And that's what we're up against. It's not just that the Amazon workers are suffering. It's that we literally deserve more. And that it is what we actually like, this is ours and being taken from us. That Jeff Bezos didn't make $1 trillion. He took $1 trillion from the workers, and that we literally are just asking for it, dude.
Yeah, without us workers, we wouldn't be no Amazon. Wouldn't be no Prime Day, nothing. These people sitting at home during this COVID. We was making all this stuff happen. Not him.
I was stacking the pallets of toilet paper when people,
and I was decanting the boxes, making sure the products will go outside, so go upstairs so it can get shipped out for the next day.
I'm gonna say thank you. I have an Amazon account, and I know y'all probably have shipped some of my boxes before. So I'm saying thank you.
Mm-hmm. And you're so welcome. Without us, y'all wouldn't be able to get these packages. Mm-hmm. And Jeff Bezos don't recognize us.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad that the CEO even quit because he noticed the BS that's going on.
Oh, really? The CEO, that not Jeff Bezos, but the other one that took
Andy, over? The one that he, his successor, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah, he stepped down.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Did that just happen recently?
It was a news article on it. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I missed that. Okay. So, yeah, that definitely says something. And that kind of mirrors how, when we think about Starbucks, that's been successful unionizing, that CEO also stepped out, and Howard Schultz took over to be like, oh, let me see if I can put a stop to this. And
he's like publicly saying he's not going to even work with unions. So.
Right. Which is sounds like is illegal, because now you're admitting that you're going to be negotiating in bad faith with Starbucks, but that's a whole other topic. But yeah, so I think so. Zeke, do you have any other questions that you were hoping to ask?
I know that organizing a union there's still secret processes that you can't discuss and stuff like that. But I want to know what are our next plans in organizing the next steps, like the ones you can disclose.
Next steps is just trying to promote our organization, trying to get people to support us with flyers. We're trying to get a little fundraiser with shirts, and probably do like a calendar to have like different information about what a union is and what labor board rules and stuff and regulations. We're just trying to start off. We got a GoFundMe page, so hopefully that will help out.
Yeah,
I've done it a little bit to it.
And oh, sorry. Go ahead. I was just going to say real quick. Feel free to send the GoFundMe information here, and we'd love to put it in the chat as well.
It's under the description on the YouTube.
Oh,
there. I put it in there.
Excellent. Cool. Go ahead, Destiny.
I was gonna say that Kat mentioned we have a bunch of recruitment plans coming down the pipeline. And our board of directors meeting is tomorrow, so not all of them have been voted on yet. So I certainly can't share them, but we do have plans popping. And Z, I was gonna ask you, do you live in Charlotte or like near Charlotte?
I live in Greenville, South Carolina.
Okay.
So I live I'm like 3 hours from Charlotte.
Okay, yeah, that's not. I thought that one of you guys were from North Carolina.
But like
if y'all need help and stuff like that, I can like if y'all are doing like events, I can definitely try to come up there because that's something I would definitely be interested in helping.
That's a drive, but
right.
I thought you might have been closer to. I thought when you said South Carolina, I thought you might have been like on the South Carolina side of Charlotte.
Yeah, I'm down in like between. I'm caught a little bit above Clemson, and I'm above like 2 hours above Columbia, South Carolina. So I'm just.
I definitely don't know the geography.
I'm like there's a line where you can go from like Greenville to Asheville to Columbia, and that's how I get to Charlotte usually.
But yeah, we have a lot of, but we're off to a really good start. And the Labor Notes conference that you showed a clip of, I hope you have a link to the whole thing in the description, because I think that anyone who's enjoyed listening to us talk about it would really like that Labor Notes conference, because it wasn't just C.A.U.S.E, it was like Amazon labor organizers from across the country. And I think that like seeing the common thread between us is really kind of amazing and really inspiring. I learned a lot from that Labor Notes convention. I didn't go. Obviously, I was at work.
See, my wife said it was cool for us to we can go up there at some point. I can go up there at some point.
Awesome. Yes.
I can definitely come help I'll come help. So.
And I think that's perfect, because the whole point of this is, yes, we want to bring light and talk to this, but this is also a perfect opportunity to form future coalition building and ways to just collaborate going forward on this. So
that's what I was going to say, is that I know that you're leftist and that your audience is probably primarily leftist, is that I would say that like a lot of community groups, right, that are not affiliated with, that aren't necessarily made of Amazon workers, have been very helpful. Yeah. And that there are ways that that community groups and some of these leftist formations are able to concretely support the union drive, and they have like they've helped with phone banking, they help with flyering, like you guys can be material support for the union even if you aren't like working there, and you always could. I mean, not everybody has the time or even the ability, like physical ability to work at Amazon, but like from the Labor Notes across the board, they asked for salts. Like when they were like, hey, when other people are like, what can we do to help? They're like, donate and salt. Like, and it's like, but even if you can't salt, there are like very material ways that you can like support. If you're close to an Amazon facility, you should like reach out to like us and see if we can help us, because there are ways to help.
Yeah, if y'all just want to follow us on, go ahead and down here, both the handles I had go by, but you can follow our PVN account too, and we'll definitely follow y'all back, and we can work on something if we need to, because that sounds awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, feel free to always shoot us or the People's Voice Network DM just to give us updates on how everything is going. And, we would love to continue the conversation and have you on in the future to give updates as well, because we want to continue to be an ally and support you all with this cause.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Adam, anything else that you wanted to say regarding this?
Sure. Yeah. So as Destiny said, we've got a couple sort of big decisions that we need to make going forward, but I would just put a nice bracket around it and just say that we expect things to heat up. We expect things to heat up soon. Immediately is, I guess, technically not true, but very near to immediately, we expect that the rubber is really going to hit the road on some of this stuff, because we're going from an organization to forming an organization to organizing, power mapping, having these conversations, meeting with these people, bringing them in. And we're hoping that things like the food bank program that Reverend Ryan mentioned will be part and parcel of that process. But we were not welcome when we arrived, but we're looking to escalate things and make it clear that we're not going anywhere. They were adorably petty. I don't know if you have any like anything you want to add, Destiny and Cap. Like I remember like the first time I went flyering, they sent a mall cop out to basically just like follow me around everywhere I went, and then, you know, like, I don't know, get his like ruler or his protractor out every time he thought that he could argue I was stepping on private property. They start with little stuff, then they went bigger. They there's a left turn lane into RDU1. They did the Bessemer on that. They changed it from a red-green to an almost permanently yellow because they knew we would be handing flyers out to people. And they did that within like a week.
Oh,
so
wow.
We have no illusions. I think something Destiny said about the obstacles to organizing here, we've spoken with some legal counsel about protecting the people who join our campaign from retaliation, right? We've got the organizer. Now it's about scaling up with even more workers. And the natural question for workers, how to avoid retaliation. And I think one of the best pieces of advice they gave that was so counterintuitive was, if you're going to be a part of cause, they know you're a part of cause. I mean, they know. And they've said in their experience as lawyers, your best defense is to be loud. Because if you're loud, you leave a paper trail. You become known as an organizer. Then firing you becomes a legal liability for them that it isn't if you're quiet. If you think you're playing it smart, how could they know? I'm stuffing it all in my desk or at the side of my workspace. You know, they know. But if you hide your evidence of your support, you make it easier for Amazon to argue that they didn't know you were a part of the movement and they can fire you. So that's one of the things that we have to sort of think through, is developing the grassroots support and establishing those trust networks through things like the flyering, through having the meetings, through the food program and things like that, where people understand that our goal is really to just be an extension of the kind of labor solidarity that we want to see on the shop floor. And for people to recognize that beyond a certain point, it behooves them, it will strengthen them if they identify and associate with cause. Because once we go from a nuisance to a threat, you know, Amazon will make abundantly clear how vulnerable they can be if they're not affiliated with the cause. But once we bring people in and we show them the power of solidarity, we're putting food on the table, we're getting flyers in their hands, we're fundraising for them, then they will understand, you know, union organizing does involve a choice, and it is a conscious, deliberate choice. The question is if we can make the pitch between hope and fear. If we lose, it's not clear what's coming after us. The question is if we can win.
I feel like we can win. I know we're going to win because we're going to be following Amazon's principles better than they can even show us that they're doing now.
Oh yeah,
I think
we're going to earn trust, we're going to deliver, and we're going to gain a whole lot of support.
We're going to work hard, have fun, and make history.
Yep, that's what we're going to do.
Hell yeah.
That's what they have like printed everywhere.
Right.
That's like their little logo. They're like, have fun and make history.
I'll be reading them principles almost every day and try to throw them back out there. And it seems like it still don't work.
It's like it has to make it. I hate that when you go into a job and it has like all these like principles. It just makes you sick. Because like you don't follow any of these.
Right. So why are you telling us that I need to follow them?
This is fun. Like
I will say, if they've got the tagline for the company culture of making history, that we could maybe play with that a little bit. I wasn't aware that that's on a sign, but I actually
they definitely
look up Amazon's principles.
A little bit.
True.
What's that?
I said, look up Amazon's principles. We can throw them back at them because they don't follow them at all.
Okay, I will. I wasn't aware of that, but that opens up a whole new discussion tomorrow.
All right, well, we're running on time here, and we're gonna do. We'll let us know what's come. I know we've been talking. The whole thing has been about cause, but if you want to let everybody know where they can find you, or and what's coming on in the future, you can start with Adam.
Sure. We have a website, amazoncause.com. That's going to have all of the basic information that we've been talking about. It has the petition that Destiny mentioned. It has the GoFundMe that was mentioned previously. It has our sort of statement of principles. It has media requests. We'll put this up there once you guys send us the link so that people can find that. I know when you had mentioned us previously, I grabbed an anchor to that part and I put it on the website as well. That's going to be where we are hoping to put the sort of essential information. It's a pretty kind of basic website, but we've had some very, very kind-hearted volunteers of people much savvier at web design than myself who have offered to step in. So hopefully if you look at it now, it looks one way and it'll look a little bit snazzier in the near future. But the real nice part about all that is that's entirely from the community. That's just entirely volunteer time that we've been able to draw on from people who are better at web design. But I would say the website is a key place to start. And, hopefully we'll show up in your feed. Hopefully this won't be the last that you've heard of all of us, but that's all I would say.
I don't think it will be.
Absolutely not. And just real quick, just so that everyone and our viewers know, specifically, this warehouse is located in where in North Carolina?
North Carolina.
I'm sorry?
Garner, North Carolina.
Okay. Awesome. Cool.
Off of Jones Sausage Road, right off of 40.
Yeah.
You can't miss it. You can see it from the highway.
It's huge.
You're right.
Nice. Awesome. Cool.
We just followed you back, Kat, by the way.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
For sure. And so on that note, thank you so much all for joining us. This is the People's Voice Network, and specifically this show is Overlooked News, as our overall goal on this show is to cover news that is overlooked. And so we want to, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to shine a light on this, and hopefully, we can continue to be helpful in any way possible going forward.
I look forward to talking to y'all soon.
Absolutely. We'll be in touch. Thanks, Z, and thanks, Andrew, for your time.
Welcome. Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all. Thank you again.